What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the tower. So there's a few short things I want to talk about today, and they do relate to each other. So starting off with something I said back in my bugs and unknown mechanics video in June. So I did say that Kernel Field Plus overrides other slows like Poison Swamp slow, the 25% you get from that, the Thunderbot's 50% slow to bosses, and then the slow Aura Guard slow. So I did get some better tests here, and I'll quickly show you those. So I did test all three, and I was wrong in that video about saying that Kernel Field Plus overrides those, since I've seen a lot of people talking about that, and I just want to make sure I'm accurate. So as you can see in these tests that I did, I got much better tests this time, and they do actually affect the boss's speed. I'll let the rest of these tests play out. And the good part about finally testing this is that I know why I thought that, and it kind of let me know about a certain mechanic in the game that seems pretty simple, but it is pretty easy to not think about. So the way I learned stuff about this game is mostly just watching the game, and back when I noticed that was during Fast Ultimate, back March and April mostly, and it was always during Fast Ultimate, and this mechanic is actually exactly about that. So I'm not sure if this is obvious to some people, but I actually never really thought about this myself. So when the Fast Ultimate says it buffs enemies to match their speed, it means that exactly. So if a Fast is buffing a certain enemy, then they will have the exact speed of the Fast no matter what. And that technically does mean that the enemies buffed by the Fasts aren't affected by some certain sources of slow. So just kind of an example of this, with either of these Fasts, they're both outside of the tower range, and this boss is inside the tower range. So if one of these Fasts outside the range buff the boss, then the boss will actually not get the slow or movement speed reduction, since they have the exact speed of the Fast. I did notice this a lot recently with commanders, since they give enemies a speed boost as well. Normally bosses aren't affected by the commander buff, but fast enemies are. So if there are fast enemies buffed a ton by a commander, they will be super fast, and they then go on to buff a boss, and then that boss gets the super fast speed that they have. So this would be the same thing with the Poison Swamp slow as well. This is a good example of that. Since these fast enemies are outside of the Poison Swamp, if the boss is buffed by them, it will not have the Poison Swamp slow effect. And then also the Thunderbot. If the fast enemy is outside of Thunderbot and the boss is inside of it, and the boss is buffed, it will not get the speed reduction from that. So that does make sense where my confusion came from, because technically they were not being affected by those sources of slow, but I just didn't know why, and I assumed it was just Kernel Field Plus instead of the Fast Ultimate. So I think this is a really interesting mechanic. I'm not sure if it's obvious to other people, but I haven't really heard other people talking about this at all. It does seem like a pretty simple mechanic though, and it is kind of surprising I haven't thought about it before. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to quickly talk about that, just to try to clear up the confusion around the different sources of slow. And if you have any other questions, you can leave those in the comments. And yeah, see ya.